When you talk about Tua and Watson, if they're going to rise, they're going to have to rise ahead of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, guys like that. Can they do that no matter how good their training camp is?
No.
So they're probably not risers then.
Not from that standpoint, no. I was thinking more in terms of their overall rankings for these two in particular. Will they get closer to the group in front of them? Because we see, we're having the conversation, obviously, first time in a long time about drafting quarterbacks early. We don't typically say that. The industry, for the most part, doesn't typically say that. And so now when these quarterbacks are getting pushed up, is it forcing fantasy managers to feel like they have to take these guys a little earlier? And these two in particular, Tua and Watson, are so polarizing because I think if they have strong camps and look like they're capable of looking, we may see them in a situation where they get drafted a little bit higher.
If Kyler Murray is ready, let's say he's expected to be back in week 3, when would you draft him?
Regular season?
Yeah.
This range, maybe a few spots higher?
Yeah, I'm quite a bit higher than his ADP, which I think is 22 or something at QB. QB 15 range, 15 to 18.
Okay. And yeah, I can't get over this idea that I read that they're going to try to have him play under center. It just seems like if they do that, and he's coming off a torn ACL, and he doesn't have DeAndre Hopkins, but obviously you're not investing a high pick in Kyler Murray.
He already takes the 7-step drop. I think he doubles it. He runs backwards so far.
All right,
so fast. That's the thing.
Potential running back risers for Jamie are Jahmyr Gibbs, depending on the ADP you look at. But do you think Gibbs could get ahead of? I guess it would be like Ramondre Stevenson. It's kind of like a bridge running back after Pollard and Henry and before Najee and Gibbs and all that. I guess, do you think Gibbs could flirt with the second round, the 2-3 turn?
I think the only way that happens, again, if it's, a lot of running backs go early, the 2-3 turns a little early, but I think mid round 3 is Stevenson gets Dalvin Cook, that type of scenario. I don't think it would be pretty dramatic to see Ramondre Stevenson fall like that without company.
I think Gibbs is another one in the Tua Watson mold that could rise in our rankings, but is unlikely to rise much, at least from RB12 in the running, unless David Montgomery gets hurt, obviously. But I mean, he could go ahead of Ramondre Stevenson without rising. They just have to sign Dalvin Cook.
You got to think that David Montgomery could be a camp riser. This guy's like RB30 in ADP.
I hope not. It's nice to be able to find that.
Yep. Javonte Williams is on this list, of course. Alexander Madison. So, Jamie, what would you need to see to have more confidence? Not to say you're not confident in, but have to make a Madison into a riser.
I think he's just going to rise by nature of more people drafting in the spot that he's in. I don't think he should be past the 4th round, but I do think that when you talk about where he's starting from, round 6 and RB22, I think he's one of the more polarizing people you see because depending on what you're looking at workload, you're looking at opportunity. People are excited about it. You look at advanced metrics, and he's not the best running back with his explosive rate and the teams that he's had success against when he's replaced Dalvin Cook. So. I think it'll just be by nature of you're looking for a potential starting running back, a guy that's going to get a lot of work and has shown some flashes of brilliance in terms of what he's done with that work. Then he'll get pushed up into the 4th round. And I think that's where he'll end up settling.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got distracted here. We have an update on Nyheim Hines from Tom Pelissero. While sitting stationary on a jet ski, Nyheim Hines was struck by another rider and sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Hines will require surgery and will miss the 2023 season. Ugh, what a bum. It's just
there's some thought that this is a Dalvin Cook destination now.
Yeah. Oh boy, that'd be interesting. That would be a long bonus pod. All right. Any of the Dolphins running backs? These are the other guys that Jamie has as potential risers. Any of the Dolphins running backs are all going in round 10 or later. Khalil Herbert, who's around 9-10 pick, RB37 in NFC ADP. James Cook, round 8 pick in RB30. Heath, your reaction to that? Any of the Dolphins running backs, Khalil Herbert, James Cook as risers? You agree with that?
Yeah, I think you could just say any of the Bears running backs. It's whoever wins that job, and Herbert's probably the most likely, but he's going to have to prove that he can do some things that he hasn't been able to do in the past. I think we'll see Cook's rise maybe just from the way that the beat writers have responded to the Nyheim Hines injury. Because there's been talk I've seen already in a couple places about how Hines was in the mix to compete with Latavius Murray and Damian Harris for touches behind James Cook. And if that type of narrative continues, that it's Cook's the lead back and Harris is the two, even if he's taking the short yardage work, which I think he would, then I think we see Cook maybe get up into that RB25 range.
Geez, more bad news here off the injury front from Lions.com or from Tim Twentyman, who writes for DetroitLions.com. Defensive back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. This is a guy who won the Super Bowl last year with the Eagles, was really good for them. Now he's on the Lions. He went down with a right leg injury Monday and was carted off the field. He was visibly upset, and team captains Buggs and Goff made it a point to go comfort him, hoping for better news than it looked. Whew. That team did a lot to upgrade their secondary, a lot to upgrade their defense. That was part of it. That's a tough break for them. We'll see what happens there with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Anything you guys want to add here with running backs who might rise?
I think whoever wins the Dolphins job, as Heath sort of said with the Bears, same situation. You know, if we get some sort of clarity on A-Chain is this, that, and the other, he's going to be the more popular of the trio. But Wilson and Mostert, and especially if there's an injury to one of those two guys, you know, the other one might, you know, significantly rise. So that's one to keep an eye on.
And I think that Jamie makes a good point in that, like, A-Chain could be a big riser. If we get to right before week 1 and Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert's at the top of the depth chart, I don't know that they're actually going to rise that much. We're just going to convince ourselves that the young guy is going to take the job. Same thing in Chicago. I think if Deontay Foreman wins the job, I'm not sure he's going to be a huge riser, but Herbert or Roschon Johnson could make a big leap if they were the clear one.
Yeah, I just wonder if A-Chain will be in Miami, will be a special teams guy and like a gadget player. You know, if he's getting any carries really before the third quarter of preseason games or anything like that. I'm curious to see, because I mention this all the time. He's small, very small, something like 180 pounds, as I recall, at the combine.
187.
Yeah, that's small. Okay, wide receivers who could rise. So Jamie has Jerry Jeudy and Calvin Ridley. They're in round 4. Deontay Johnson, and then kind of later, this group of Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown, Gabe Davis, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. But the round 4 guys, Jeudy and Calvin Ridley. So could you see Jeudy and Ridley going ahead of DK Metcalf at some point, getting into the middle of round 3?
Yeah. I have it ranked that way. So
I know you have it ranked that way, but but people aren't quite drafting it that way.
I think Ridley is the one that could really, like, if he shows up in whatever, if they play their starters for a series or 2 in the first preseason game or the second, and Lawrence is just peppering Ridley with targets and he looks like Calvin Ridley, then yeah, he could jump into the round 3 discussion for sure.
Yeah, yes, he could. Not going to be round 2 for these guys, but round 3, maybe. Yeah, Jeudy. I do wonder where people are going to be. I feel like people who do fantasy rankings are going to be higher on Jeudy than average Joe fantasy player. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I would totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you mention Jerry Jeudy, you hear bust attached to his name because he's struggled through the first 3 years of his career for the majority of it, battled some injuries. There's this stigma attached to the Broncos after what happened last year, but I think everybody, for the most part, is settling for these guys as opposed to wanting to draft them, which will sort of lend itself to your Russell Wilson argument. But yeah, Jeudy, I think, you know, if you look at the way he finished last year and what he profiles to be, and if he could ever live up to that, he can easily be a top 12 receiver. You know, it's going to take a little bit of a leap of faith to trust that, but he's got that upside and potential.
Yeah, and I think I'm the low guy on Jeudy. So like he has a great opportunity to rise in my rankings, but I've got him in round 6, so I'm not getting any Jerry Jeudy right now.
Jamie, with Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown, Gabe Davis, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, round 6 through 8 wide receivers, who do you think could rise the most?
Oh, Marquise Brown. I mean, it's more of you say Kyler's ready to go. He may jump 2 rounds easy. I think, again, you look at what he did at the beginning of the season last year, his opportunity, the targets he should be able to get, and a healthy quarterback. Even if it's not 100% of Kyler Murray, that's, I think, what's going to sway people. So he's a great buy right now because even with Colt McCoy, he should still be good. But he has a chance to be special with Kyler.
Have we heard anything on Kyler Murray? I feel like they've been very quiet about it.
Just that Will Brinson pissed him off.
He came out and said something about, I don't remember what it was, though. I'll find it.
I'm just reading right now on ESPN. They just put a Cardinals training camp preview up a few hours ago. In reality, Murray may not be ready until sometime during the season. All right. I mean, nobody knows. What can you say at this point? All right, how about some tight ends who could be on the rise? You have 2 listed. They're both outside the top 12 in average draft position. Dalton Kincaid and Greg Dulcich. What do you think? What do you have to say about Kincaid and Dulcich?
Yeah, I was just looking at the young tight ends, for example, who have I think some upside, and I think depending on where you look in terms of rankings, that's what people will start to follow, and probably projections, for sites that lend itself to do that for their draft rooms. I think Kincaid is going to be the most popular rookie, and once you start to hear more buzz about him when training camp opens and the different formations that they're using him in, and Josh Allen is looking for Dalton Kincaid, and he scored this touchdown in a red zone drill or this touchdown in a 7-on-7. Those things will get some hype, and I think the same thing with Dulcich, who, at least based on the second-year tight ends right now, you're looking at probably him and Trey McBride, unless I'm missing somebody, Okonkwo, but we know where his situation is, but the second-year tight ends, Dulcich has probably the best upside of that group right now. And so if he has that, again, training camp performance, and there's been some more positive buzz. Remember, there was negative buzz when Sean Payton first took the job. Now there's more positive buzz coming out, and I think there'll be more so even so once training camp is in full swing. These are 2 guys I think that can creep into the top 12 conversation.
Well, we've mentioned Judy and Dulcich from Jamie. Russell Wilson's got to be on this list, right? He just seems like such an obvious. The Broncos.
Is this why you did this show?
Yeah.
What is Russell Wilson going to do, though, in the offseason or in the training camp or preseason that's going to wash the stink of last year off of him? Like he might be a huge riser the first month of the season in perceived value, but I just can't imagine. Is Russell Wilson going to play in the preseason? Well,
I would think so. With a new head coach, I would think they'd want to get the starters out there a little bit for some reps. But I just think that if there are positive vibes and there's a lot of talent on offense there really is, and you've got Sean Payton. Look, I think people are going to be on opposite sides of it. I'm not going to have a hard time buying into it. Some people are. But if you're like me and you can buy into Sean Payton and you don't think Russell Wilson is completely done, and if you heard Robert Turbin, who was on our show last month, and I asked him, is Russell Wilson washed up? And he said, hell no. If you can buy into the bounce back, it's not going to take much. If you like Judy, if you like Dulcich, if you like Sutton, even as a number 3 receiver, like it's not going to take much to buy into Wilson. And then could you move him ahead of Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith? I mean, I don't think it's really asking so much. So I just think positive vibes, Heath. Positive vibes.
Yeah. Well, you'll get those. They'll be corny.
From the reporters.
But I think it's also, look, there's when you say rise, is he going to get? This is, I think, what started our Dak Prescott conversation. Is he going to get to where Dak is? I don't think so. Is he going to pass Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers or Geno Smith? Whether he should or he shouldn't, I don't think he's going to. And I think that's sort of where the cutoff lies. Like I said to you, I think if you're drafting Anthony Richardson or Tua Tagovailoa, Russell's in that group of guys you want to pair with him because there's still the potential for him to be a good floor quarterback. Can he get you 20 to 22 points per game? I think that's where he'll end up sort of living, with the chance to have some spike weeks. But the positives are he's got Sean Payton. He's got 2 offensive linemen that should make his protection better. I think I told you I saw something where, he lost 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Now he's back. He's back with the team as opposed to this stupidity of having his own office and being away from the guys. Everything is trending in the right direction for him. And I think the biggest thing probably is that they didn't trade the receivers. You remember what that story was at the draft of Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are on the move. Now he has a pretty solid group, especially if one of Tim Patrick or Marvin Mims can perform to maybe what their expectations are. Patrick a couple years ago and Mims now. So with Dulcich as well, it's a good group. And, the run game is still, I think, a little bit of a question mark, even though Javonte Williams is back. So there might be a little bit more on his shoulder. So I don't think Russell Wilson ever gets back to what he was with Seattle, but he could certainly be a guy that can, get you through some weeks.
Adam's just waiting for me to say. I've been stuck on this. Like, he has his weapons being a plus compared to other fantasy quarterbacks. Maybe.
Well, compared to Daniel Jones, yes.
Well, Daniel Jones is not being drafted for his passing. Like, he threw for 3,000 yards last year, and it was like his breaking out party. Nobody thinks Daniel Jones is going to have any success as a passer.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's not true. Nobody
reasonably thinks that.
No, I don't. I think that's unfair to Daniel Jones. I mean, I think the Giants think that. I think that you bring in Darren Waller and you hope that he just keeps developing.
It wasn't unfair to Daniel Jones. Their path to success is not.
Well, I think it's.
they didn't go get a number 1 wide receiver.
Vague what you mean by success as a passer, I guess. You could interpret it many ways, but
okay.
I would take Wilson over Daniel Jones, is what I'm saying. But no, I mean, some people believe in him, and they just think that finally the time is right.